Okay, so if I want to do just a very simple color turntable, I will basically set up, usually I'll frame the base or core of my model, which in this case is the body of this creature. Also, very important starting out, you want to set your document resolution. So if you're going for full HD, it's 1920 by 1080. Then you hit resize. I'll say, yes, I want to resize. Again, it sort of drops almost like a screenshot version of this. So you have to hit Control N to clear the canvas. Left click and drag out the model again, hit T. And additionally, you want to make sure, again, because depending on the resolution of your screen that you're actually working on, you may not see the full document. So you might have to zoom out a little bit just to see the full kind of border and full dimensions of that document, okay? Because you want to use, I think, as much of the screen as possible while not clipping off any part of the mesh. So again, I'll hit F to frame. And then I'll probably recenter a little bit by left clicking and dragging and then zooming out just a bit. And then I'll usually do a bit of a test rotation. So I think for the most part, I'm not clipping off too much of anything. I used to start from a front view, and I realized there was a bit of a problem with that, the very beginning or very end of the video may start in that view. And so it can be hard sometimes to actually just get the view you want. So I find starting with the side view makes it easier to pause and then scrub a bit around the front 3/4 kind of views. So very simply, in this case, I've got color on, I've got skin shade 4 applied, and I'm going to go to document. Sorry, not document. Go to movie. You want to set this to document. So right here, the window will record everything, meaning it's recording the interface, all the tools, everything inside of ZBrush you see, that's the window. Document is literally just the document space. And then the movie size, I want it to be as big as possible to match my resolution. And people make this mistake all the time. I don't know how, but very simple. Set it to large so we get 100% of the scale. We don't want half the scale, a quarter of the scale. We want full HD. For modifiers, I'll just dock this on the side as well. So if you wanted to screenshot this or pause and look at it, you can. ZBrush currently still has a weird issue with exporting video files. Even if you set your recording to 24 frames per second, there's no way to export it at 24. It just converts it to 30. So I usually like a 10-second turntable because it's fast enough to not be boring and slow enough to allow you to pause at any point and see detail that you need to see. Okay? I've noticed this with professional turntables in industry, things I've seen in behind the scenes, things I've seen first person. It's usually about 10 seconds. So my recommendation is 30 frames per second for ZBrush, 30 frames playback. And then for spin, because we want it to be 10 seconds, right? It's how many frames per second times how many seconds. So that's 300 in this case, okay? The other thing ZBrush has, again, I think it's meant for, tutorials or let's say you can have almost like a time lapse. It has this cursor size thing. So I usually set this to 0. I don't want to see a cursor flying around. Again, I want no distractions. Additionally, too, you might have your document with a range, meaning it's got this gradient. Again, I find it really distracting. And in almost every professional turntable I've seen, things are flat. And usually flat gray, okay? Just set the range to 0 on your document setting. Okay, lastly, there is this thing called an overlay image. This is a logo that will kind of show up in the bottom right corner. What I recommend you do is you actually title this, have your name, the project title, and then if there's other information I want, so let's say I want to see the poly count, you put the poly count in, and I'll show you how to do that. Also, ZBrush does this weird thing where there's like almost like a text or title fade in and fade out, and it's a full screen image with the ZBrush logo in the middle and a bunch of basically like dark gray. So again, it chops off like a third of your turntable. So I set this to 0 fade in, 0 fade out. Okay. If you didn't want the logo and you just wanted the turntable, you can just set that to 0. But I'll show you what it looks like with it on. Because everything's framed, right, I basically started here. If you now go to the top of your movie setting and simply hit turntable, it's going to render out or calculate out a turn. Okay, so right away I'm seeing a problem. It's like off center and stuff. That can happen. I'll hit escape. You can also play the movie here, and you can see it kind of in this floating window. By the way, ZBrush just sort of stores it temporarily, and you don't want to have a bad turntable start in front of a good turntable. So you want to make sure you hit the delete key. And we're not saving the recording, so I'm going to just delete it. So I'm going to try to just hit F to frame everything here. We can also try local symmetry as well, just to make sure that this thing will, usually when you rotate as a test, it will roughly show you what it's going to look like. Try it again, turntable. Again, it's kind of spinning off. So I'll show you how to adjust for that too. Sometimes, a lot of the time, what I do is I will simply hit F once and then center it. Hitting F once centers the subtool. Hitting it twice will center the whole object, okay? Including all subtools. I'm still having an issue here with that. So I'm going to cancel that. Make sure I delete the movie. No to saving. So one thing you could do is sort of check the pivot, and the pivot might be kind of oddly placed. Usually when I have a pivot issue, or if I know I want the turntable to specifically be in a certain place, especially when you've got many, many subtools, this gets kind of really complicated really fast. What you can use is a tool under Z plugin called Transpose Master, and it's meant to help you repose characters quickly with layers of complex clothing and things of that nature. What it's going to do is kind of temporarily combine all the subtools into one. Now I can sort of say, okay, I want my pivot to be, usually I'll do this via visibility. So if I know I want to kind of center things kind of around this like belly region or roughly the center mass, you can go to the center point here via visibility and go to transform, hit set pivot. And the pivot will now be centered to that point. Okay? If I go back to Z plugin, T-pose mesh, back to subtool. So that's transpose mesh, which is a temporary mesh, back to the separate subtools, and you see them all shift position as it goes, right? There we go. So you're seeing it now kind of reframe, right? Reposition everything. Always a good idea, by the way. I've had this happen a number of times where if there's an error in one of the subtools, it'll break it, and then you won't get your subtools back. So a good idea is to save before doing this. Okay. I'll hit F again just to frame. Now you see the positioning and pivoting and turning is centered. So that's a good thing. So if I hit, again, play movie, let's go to play movie. There we go. We'll see it turn. Everything looks good. Okay, you can hit escape to get out of there. I've seen people do this too where they hit save movie and it saves it as a .zmv, which is a ZBrush movie video, whatever. Not useful because it's slow to open. It's not just universally openable. So you want to make sure you turn on H for high quality export in your movie settings. Again, that's in here. I've also docked it to the side, and then you want to hit export. Okay. So I'll just select my folder. Now I'll have the export. And it should play back pretty good. Double click it, should play back beautifully, look really good, right? Very, very kind of common way to show off your models, your texturing, whatever. Sometimes at companies, they'll be required to do this at the end of every day or at the end of every week. Just give your directors and leads updates on the progress. So that's something you'll be doing day in and day out. And if you're working like me, often as a freelancer, I do this typically at major stages of the production, or if the client or customer checks in and says, hey, what's happening currently with this, that, or the other thing. I'll do kind of these preview renders at highest quality possible with the lowest amount of render time. Okay? The last thing I want to mention is, putting in some text. The image size itself doesn't need to be really big, and I usually look at this in terms of pixels. So something this small is usually okay, and you can test for readability, but I'm going to basically save this as a PNG. PNG, JPEG, PSD is fine, and you just want white text on a black background, and I'll show you why. So I'll go back, I'll delete the current movie, no to saving, and then under the overlay, that's that bottom right corner image. And I'll just bring it up so we can see it again. You see that logo in the bottom right corner, right? So that's what the visibility of that is. Okay, so you can click on the logo and simply hit import, select your text, and then this is called the mask as well, so you don't see the black box, you'll just see the cutout. And then you can crank the opacity to 100% if you like. And I'll just render a partial turntable so you can sort of see where that shows up, how it reads. So sometimes you can tweak the resolution a bit bigger if it's not readable, or adjust its placement. It's just a little bit easier, I would say, than having to open Premiere, drag in the video, then put text on it and re-render and recompress it potentially. So it's just kind of cutting out an extra step, I would say. So I'll go back to play movie, and you see that now in the bottom right corner, right? So often we'll put my logo in there as well if I'm representing myself, my company, whatever, right? And it looks nice, looks clean, looks professional. It's good, I think, to sign your work or have your name on your work as well. Another great thing about this is that if you're applying for jobs, sometimes like last minute internships and things pop up too. It'd be great to just kind of put together a demo reel of already ready to go turntables and renders, right?